On the agenda, so let's go to approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments to those minutes, or is there a motion to approve them?
A motion to approve.
And anyone second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No, so we'll consider those approved. Now we can have the executive director's report.
Yes. First,
Well,
I want to introduce Bill Gray, Gray-Bowen. We have a recent special this week. Many of you were emailed. Treating this unfortunately no longer with our company, pursuing other efforts. So Bill is taking over as our executive director.
Bill Gray, I'm one of the founders of the Gray-Bowen Company and been around a long time. I've known Jeff on and off in different projects over the years, so I'm looking forward to working with you. I understand you've got kind of a tight agenda tonight today, so I'll keep my comments short.
And so the executive director report, we have a new director, Elizabeth Trowbridge of LBA, is representing LBA, replacing Chris Freeze. This frees up the vice chair position on our board, so we can either have anyone interested speak now, or we can hold off to the next meeting and make an appointment then.
why don't we do this? If you're interested in that, and we do need that spot filled, please let Trudy know. We can go run in. Sorry, it's been a long week. And we can then make it official. There may be more than one person if that happens, so
Sure.
let's say that we want to hear, Ronnie wants to hear from you in the next 2 weeks, so that if more than one hand raised, we can, we can figure out what we're going to do.
It's a fun position, so I encourage.
And if no one raises their hand, they're gonna get called, so. We need that role filled.
How fun is it?
We don't want everyone to know.
You gotta join first, then you find out.
Okay, so feel free to nominate yourself or anyone else. 2 weeks from today, we're hoping to have at least one, if not more people interested. And what would be the term of that till our next?
So the next meeting, the next annual membership meeting will occur in May. And every May, we elect new officers.
Yeah, so theoretically, that's what you would be committing for. All right.
Other good news, our buses have been delivered in Brandon. We have 2 new buses that you guys approved at the August board meeting. We hope to have those in service by November 1st. We're waiting on some last minute items from the purchaser we got it from. You also heard earlier this summer that we had a Poetry in Motion program in the city of Emeryville, the Poet Laureate, and that has been launched as of this month. So we've got some poetry in our buses, so if you buy it, you'll see little cards.
Any feedback?
Not yet, no. I mean, the city might have gotten some feedback, I'm sure, but.
Only from staff.
Good. At the last meeting, we talked about the need for just kind of revisiting a few committees that we have. One was the bylaws committee, and the other was the executive director review committee. The bylaws committee, given the recent staff changes, we actually spoke with Jeff and agreed that it would be good to postpone the executive director contract review until later. We can decide when that happens. The executive director, the current contract term ends December 15th, this year, or December 31st of this year. So we'll need to submit a scope and budget request for the next term next year.
So we need volunteers for that.
We do need volunteers for that. We have 3, so I think we're actually good. I think it's you, Alice, and Bob, I believe.
But we're happy to have more. if
Any
you'd like.
more? Yeah.
And the duties are reviewing their performance retroactive, backwards, talking about goals and objectives and compensation going forward.
Exactly, that's exactly right. The other committee was the bylaws committee. Given we have a lot of efforts happening with the PBID renewal, I think as those kind of evolve, the committee will meet and discuss primarily the governance structure of the Emeryville TMA. So I don't expect that happening until early 2015. So participation right now is not required. I would like to see one more member on that committee.
Who is it on? Remind us who's on.
We have Francis and Bob. So one more member would be really good. We have our website, our temporary website will hopefully launch next week or earlier the week after, and the new website is still on schedule for completion in December. And also the BART station. Frontage Road has been under construction for over a year and it opened this week. So we're still waiting for some bus shelters to install some real-time signage in there. Those haven't been installed yet, so we're waiting on that, but the frontage road is open, and we are, the BART representative has been out there. They've been very active in making sure the buses are where they're supposed to be, the shuttles are, but I think there's rising concern about whether or not they will have enough space for all the shuttles.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion there this week on
There
what
was-
the warrant that was there, and the buses were, there's a lot of shuttle stock there, so the whole way down that new area they were spread out, so.
Right. And I think there might be some limitations on what shuttles can use it at some point, and what shuttle, Emery go around and applause from BART staff saying that they were very, they followed the rules, they were where they were supposed to be, and kind of were the leading people on how to make this happen. So we
Can I just make one more comment? Actually, what would help would actually be better signage on the buses, because I still see some of the drivers holding up, A4 sheets of paper with Paul's on or Paul, which is, you can
Right,
see people kind of scrambling around trying to decide,
okay.
Maybe
Well,
come
I'll
off the
look at
mark.
that. I thought that we had some new signage all installed last month. Okay, so we'll look into that again. And
So they can see that it's an Emery-go-round bus, but they don't know which route.
The driver kind of sits and holds up a sign with what it is. So you can see people, particularly come running out of the bar, trying to get their shuttle, they kind of, what I need to
Is
do.
that on a yellow Emery-go-round bus, or is it on a temporary bus?
I think it's one of the Emery-go-round buses.
Okay.
So it's
I'll check
at
into
least
it, make
one.
sure they write signage on it. And that concludes the executive director's report.
So any questions or comments?
Okay. I'll continue on with business items then. I have handed out a revised budget. We sent out a budget on Friday with the packet, however, that has been modified. We have received an updated PBID revenue amount from the NBS, which is the city's consultant who handles the assessments, and didn't get that till this week, so I've updated the revenue there to show the actual assessed revenue that they had this year.
And that's the only change from what you showed us.
Only change from what we've shown before, exactly.
And did that go up or down?
It went down about $50,000 to $60,000. So it changed the bottom line. I want to make sure we get that included in this budget. So, some of you were still on the board back in June. We had the preliminary budget presented. The purpose of the preliminary budget was to identify costs for the next year, 2015, and for the board to use that information to make a recommendation for an assessment increase, which they did, and the recommendation was 2.5% and was approved by City Council. This budget is reflective of that 2.5% increase. The changes that we've had since the budget, the preliminary budget was prepared, is back in August, we had made the decision to acquire 2 shuttle buses as opposed to the one that we budgeted in 2014. And we also shortened up the term of leases to be within the term of the PBID funding. We didn't want to extend ourselves beyond the funding term. So by doing that, it increased our payments for 2015. The difference is about $70,000, so it increased that line item buses and lease purchases by $70,000. Also following the trends, we had maintenance and fuel increases over the last few months. So I've bumped those up just a little bit, $25,000 for the maintenance and $20,000 for the fuel. Also recognizing that we are expecting a 15% increase in service this year, in 2015, sorry. Those are the only changes. Financial considerations. We had received, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we had received $186,000 more in PBID revenue last year than we had originally budgeted. $70,000 of that was the amount that the city had in the general fund that they authorized, and the rest of it, I haven't looked into it, but I'm assuming maybe some delinquent assessments were collected upon. There's other things like that could have happened. That's why our assessments went up so high. We got more than we anticipated. So with that additional revenue, we can afford to fund the increases in 2015 and still keep our cash balance at the end of the year within the 7% required minimum cash balance for our policies.
So, for those who are less familiar, we've been growing.
Yes.
Ridership's been growing and our system's been growing, the standard buses, costs go up.
Yep.
And so success means we've needed more money and our revenues are pretty fixed. I mean, we can ask to increase a levy, but other than that, change in the levy, which was 2.5%. It has to be the addition of new projects, and even a new project doesn't move the needle. I mean, I think of them as being worth $25,000 to $50,000 a project, which is, 1% of our $2.5 million budget. So, I mean, it's a positive number, but it doesn't make material differences. And so we knew that this was happening, and everyone here on the board and our writers seem to like the system and think we should continue it, right? And then the fact, we heard that loudly from the public as well, for lots of different reasons. And so the city council said, we don't, rather than having you, Emeryville, cut back to make it a balanced budget, we will help assist you over a very short period of time until we can consider a new PBID renewal, which isn't a certain thing, it has to go through a process, but everyone sort of said, let's figure out how to not radically cut back in the service while we're trying to think about the future, right? So their assistance, they approved up to $400,000 depending on the level of our deficits, and you've put in here a big chunk of that money, right? So even with that money, we still have a big deficit, right? That's what you're saying, and we have cash reserves that we're sort of taking down to what I think of as fumes level.
Yes.
Because they're very tiny relative to our budget.
It's about 1 month of operating costs,
Right.
that's what that is.
So, I mean, in your own home, do you live on 1 month of reserve? For me, that feels a little anxious when you're in an operating business.
Right.
But that's not a surprise. So if you look at it and go, oh my God, it's a big negative number, it's sort of like, well, that was anticipated. And we're counting on good things in the future. So anyway, I just wanted to.
Yeah. And that's a good point. The other consideration, financial consideration, the city will have to formally authorize the allocation of the $226,000 we budgeted this year when they do the budget approval. Is that right?
Yeah, so how it works, and I'm at this point expecting to do this at the, I will not be here, so the next available budget would be either November 18th, and I'm going to be out of town. And so it will probably be December 2nd, or the December 16th council meeting, one of the two. We'll be having 2 new council members on December 2nd, so whether that's the best meeting, I'm not, staff is still determined, but it will be in December. And so what the item would be is an annual item. So the contract between the city and the TMA is a 10-year contract, the length of the PBID itself. And according to PBID law, the city can only contract with the TMA for the services provided under the PBID. So it's a contract that's kind of a mandated contract, so to speak. And so the contract is for the length of the PBID, but every year, according to the contract, we set the compensation based upon your approved budget. And of course, as part of that, the city also has to ultimately approve any levy that's put in, though it is based upon, again, kind of required to be based upon the recommendation of the TMA itself. So the budget, so the agenda item would be setting the annual compensation for the service year 2015, which is January 1st through December 31st, as well as something that's not been the case is also approving the release, so to speak, of the $226,000 of the $400,000 that the city council was already in the budget said is there for the use of the Emery as kind of bridge money. So it will be the agreement that essentially is releasing the PBID money, and also will be adding to that the agreed upon, part of the funds that the city is putting up to tie everyone over until we go forward.
What else do you need to tell us about the budget?
I think we have a question too. First.
The bridge money is for 2015, correct?
It will go into 2016, so a portion of it's budgeted for 2015, and the balance of the $400,000 will be used in 2000.
It's available, put it that way.
Is available,
It's available.
right.
And the new P bid will take effect, when will we have the vote on the new P bid? You know?
Likely mid-year next in 2015. And in other words, the new P bid, the plan would be that the work would be done with various stakeholders to come up with a management plan that's supported by an engineer's report that it meets the standards for levying a special assessment district. And then it's subject to a Proposition 218 vote of the impacted property owners. And we are looking to do it in June in order to have the opportunity then for the city council to act to approve obviously if the parcel owner is voted down, it's null and void. And the way the Emery funding was structured, there would be enough money to get through the end of 2016, which is why the bridge money is for that possibility. If it is approved by, or if it's upheld by the parcel owners, then the council has the opportunity to approve it. And then the idea is to be able to put it on the parcel, on the property tax roll for the 15-16 fiscal year. And so that needs to be done by the end of July, first week of August, in order for the county to be able to put it on the property rolls. And then that puts it on the 15-16 property rolls, and so that money could potentially be available for 2016. But it really depends on how the management plan is structured. So, going a year early, it will have to be spelled out how that works out. It might be that it doesn't take effect until 2017. However, that process works.
So in terms of the process of thinking through levies and proportionate of costs and participation and all that work with the various stakeholders who will want to pitch in on that would be first quarter of 2015?
Yes. Right now, we're just working a little bit to try to make sure that we have as clean as parcel numbers as we have, and to look a little bit about some of the different categories that have been talked about, just so we have the data to base the discussion on. There are no discussions around that at all, other than the fact that the Immigrant Task Force and the council did indicate that as much as because of recent court cases as anything else, that residential parcels will have to be included. PBID statute exempts residences, but there's been a couple of court cases in which PBIDs have been overturned because they didn't include all parcels that potentially were receiving the benefit. Some of you may have been knowledgeable that this is happening with some school parcel taxes as well, like in Alameda, where Alameda had to actually refund money because they had a split roll tax. And so the thought is that despite the law, the Constitution will not allow a split roll, the exempted amount of exempted parcels if in fact they're still receiving the same benefit. So that's kind of the only direction we kind of have, what the levy would be, whether there's more fine-graining of the various land uses, all of that is still to be discussed.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
So that's sort of it was about a budget that went to that source of revenue. But so are there anything else you want to tell us about the budget?
No, I think that covers a good deal.
Are there any questions about it?
It's a great service.
So are you seeking our approval
I'm
of
seeking
this?
approval of the budget.
Do we have a motion to approve the budget?
A motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that's passed. That's wonderful.
And so there'll be a transmittal letter to the city. Please, you can send it to Sabrina, but please copy me.
Okay.
And in that way, that will be the basis for the agenda item.
On December, some date in December.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's no council meeting on November 4th.
Okay, EBOTs, Diana, that's the last thing here on the agenda. We promised everyone they could leave at 5:10 to make the other event,
Yes.
so we want you to cover what you need to cover. But be aware of that, because The whole room may walk out.
I'm the main media contact, so.
Everyone who came in the board,
Everything up, don't worry.
so it's a popular event.
Okay, so I'm glad to be back, and we have a draft report now. It describes transit context. Shuttles are assumed to continue operating as planned. AC Transit is holding meetings this week on some potential changes, including a realignment of 26 to go on Mandela, down to West Bart, and new 48 possibly from Public Market to Shattuck Bancroft. And Oakland is studying upgrading and extending the Broadway freebie shuttle. The report describes some short-term options, which are bus stops for the F-bus and fixing up the bus stops at 40th San Pablo. West Berkeley shuttle could add members and increase service to Amtrak. West Oakland developers, there's two big ones that have mentioned the idea of a shuttle. Maybe somebody could get them together and it won't happen. Cities could encourage use of the AC Transit easy passes, especially when they approve development projects. And demand response transit might work for late night when nothing else is running. So, for the 5 to 10 year time frame, the report proposes an enhanced bus from Emeryville Square and up to Harlan and Hall Street, Emeryville, and up through Berkeley and Gilman Street. So, it would be a branded hybrid or battery bus running from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays and 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on weekends, with 10-minute frequencies, 15 minutes at the end. Faster travel using signal priority and only 5 stops per mile, that's about every 1,000 feet. Level boarding with curb extensions and buses with low floors and wide aisles. Shelters with lighting and cameras and benches and trash cans and bike racks. And real-time arrival info and marketing so people know that this is there. And the cost analysis with capital costs over 12 years for a bus and operating and maintenance adds up to about $20 million a year for this thing. It could be operated by an association like this one, a new one, or expanding with an assessment district, expanding assessment districts in West Berkeley and West Oakland, or by AC Transit, which is eligible for federal formula funds, and they also sell easy passes and are already set up to handle fares. So there's a couple options that could do this. For the 10 to 20 year time frame, this report recommends streetcars. The one from MacArthur Barton into Emeryville and West Oakland. The one in Emeryville is to supplement the Emery-Go-Round by going on the parts of Emery-Go-Round routes that have the heaviest ridership, or Emery-Round is having a hard time keeping up with the ridership. So it would go from MacArthur Barton in kind of a figure 8, up Shell Mound, across on 64th, down Christie, across on Powell, and down on Hollis and back, and the other way around. And then the one in West Oakland would go from MacArthur down Mandela to the BART station and over to Jack London Square, finishing in O with the freebie shuttle if they extend it. So, let's see, what else do I want to say about that? Cost estimates. Because you can pay for streetcars over a 30-year period, they last that long, and because these routes are a little bit shorter than the bus route we're talking about, the costs for each shuttle are about the same as the cost for the bus per year, even though it's more expensive. It's spread over more time and less space. Could be, the streetcars could be operated by a transportation association, or AC Transit, or BART, or a Tri-City Joint Powers Authority, possibly evolving from one type of operator to another over time. So how's that pretty short? And I can answer any questions, and I'd be curious to hear what you think of all this.
Well, and then just real quick, did you want to mention that there is the study session next Tuesday night?
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you. City Council is holding a study session on October 21st, which is next Tuesday, at 6:30. We get that meeting all to ourselves. We don't have to sit around and wait till it's going to come up.
Of course, that's open to the public, obviously, we
Well, so I have some questions or comments really. I think of this as, we have this corridor along the east shore. What do we want the future to be in terms of transit? Right? That's the question I think this was supposed to answer. And what would help me is this, it's like 100 pages or 50 pages. I'm not sure it had like an executive summary. Like this is what we think. We've done all this work. I mean, I see there's tons of analysis and consensus building and all that, but
My council staff report is actually a pretty good executive summary. And moving pretty
But I mean, the
quickly.
report-
Put it into the draft report also.
to get feedback, it's easier to give it to you when you don't have to read 50 pages, right? I mean, I looked at them all, but I think that, because I view this as a document that will remind people well into the future what prior folk thought made sense, and that it'll be a vehicle that many people may use to try to encourage people with money to give them money for this stuff. So that's number one.
Yes.
Number two, I won't steal your thunder, but Bill Gray wrote an email, and I think we all got,
Oh, yes, I got that.
and I would like you to just hit those points.
Well, and I guess my first question, because I'm new getting involved in this stuff, but what's the timing in terms of when this is going to be adopted and they'd like to have it adopted? Because we might have some, comments, but we'd like to make sure they're in there in a timely manner. Yeah, this is the email that I wrote. I don't think everybody was
So
copied.
we're having a study session at city council this Tuesday.
Right.
So the more comments we get by then, the better. Then we're going to go to the Berkeley City Council, and then November 5th, we have a technical advisory committee meeting. That's the last one of those, and they're going to think about what comments we've gotten and where to go with the final report. And then we do have some meetings after that, as it turns out. West Oakland Community Meeting, AC Transit Board, Oakland City Council, West Oakland Business Board, and BART info item. And then we hope at the beginning of December to post a final report.
Okay.
And then we'll bring that to the Emeryville Planning Commission, City Council, and anybody else that wants to come back to them.
Well, my biggest thought, more than anything, was really to emphasize the importance of the shuttles like the Emery go around in the last mile services. Because, as we just talked about a little bit with the PBID renewal, there's going to be some challenges in terms of how that's all structured. And this report, at the end of the report, there's a good kind of matrix that shows potential funding sources, but it doesn't list the shuttles as one of the potential recipients. And I think it would be helpful for us to basically bring the shuttles into it as an important element of this. They are mentioned, the future route, the fourth route that we're going to do next year is talked about, but as AC and BART and all the other operators need, in effect, justification for asking for funds, we do too. And I think it would be helpful. My comments, I think, are pretty straightforward, but it basically is emphasizing the importance of the last mile shuttles and the number of riders that we move in this community through this service is significant. And it's complementary to what AC and BART do. And we all know that there's a ballot in November for new local sales tax, transportation sales tax. And as AC and BART would like elements of that, we would too, if we at least had an opportunity to talk about it. So I think that's
for
the
example, if I'm AC Transit, I think this is 50 pages of help in asking for money from me.
Right.
And so we'd like it to be as equally strong for all shuttles, because I don't think anyone's future is guaranteed. We've been very secure and stable and growing. The shuttles to the north and south of us, or east and west, whichever, are less secure. And so the Oakland shuttle's under stress, that's what I understand financially. So I agree with that.
Having some basic public funds, whether it's MTC or local sales tax funds, to encourage the shuttles would just exponentially help the success of all of them. So that's the tone of it. Diane, I provided some very initial thoughts, but my thinking is that any comments that the board members have today, we put in the form of a comment letter and submit it. It sounds like at the workshop or fairly quickly thereafter, we got to get that in.
I've been doing this pretty informally. If I hear
Okay.
something in a meeting, I put it in my staff report.
Okay.
Of course, the staff report's already written, but my verbal staff report.
Sure. Well, the comment, you've got a copy of the memo that I put together, and if there's anything to add to it, I guess that's.
Yeah, I mean, so Bill's saying, how do we get it to
Kind of
help help people give us money in the future.
We want
And
to
unless
be part of
anyone
it.
objects to that, I think that's something our group feels strongly about. But if there are nuances and things, you can share them with Jill, and he'll assemble them, and if, he needs to talk to everybody about it, he will.
Yeah, we'll send this email out to everybody, and then if you have a chance to think about it, just respond back, and then we'll get it off to the city and make it part of our formal comments.
Be sure to vote for Measure B.
Yes. Absolutely.
Which has in their budget, there's a program for, a grant program for shuttles that are operated by public entities to apply for.
Right. So we'd be eligible, if it Measure B even passes, we'd be eligible to apply for the grants. It's not an automatic thing, but we potentially get some money there.
Any other questions for Diane or discussion on this issue?
This is good.
Okay, so is there any other thing that any board member would like to suggest or ask or comment on? If not, I'll remind you that our next meeting is scheduled for the 20th of November.
Yes, just a note on that, I don't plan on, I'm gonna try to avoid having December meetings, so any actions that need to be taken, the new contracts can be ready to expire in December, in the yards, and we'll make sure those are all on the November agenda, so if we can get participation in November to take those actions, we're clear for December.
And you have 2 weeks to volunteer to be the vice chair and on the committees.
Thank you, guys.
So we'll call
Yes, for December, for the November meeting, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Adjourn? Great.